I wanted to make an argument for why Kamala would be a better populist pick than Trump.
Okay.
From what I've seen, I haven't followed politics very long, but from what I've seen, Republicans don't really want to pay attention to politics very often unless it starts to infringe on what they're doing. They more want to work and take care of their families and stuff like that. Sure. And I think over the last 16 years, we've had kind of a slow degrading of kind of everything.
Okay.
For 12 of those 16 years. But I think we need more of a wake-up event to actually get people to actually push back, especially since, which you do a great job of pointing out, the two-tier system of justice that we have whenever Republicans do try to protest. And it's also like trying to herd cats together. Mm-hmm. They immediately get shut down and blown out. So I think it's kind of like the frog in boiling water. Republicans have kind of slowly been losing more and more ground, that we would need a catastrophic event like Kamala Harris actually getting elected with her no policies and getting installed to wake enough people up to actually push back.
So this is an argument, it's called accelerationism, and there's a lot of people that make this argument. I've even kind of made this argument. Like, so if we, instead of looking at this election, let's look in the past. There is a credible point to be made of, would we be in a better position had Hillary Clinton won in 2016 than Trump, right? Because actually it kind of goes the opposite way, but you're suggesting. I think that there was this slow turning up of sort of authoritarianism that we saw, but they still had to, they couldn't accelerate it too fast. And then with the election of Trump, I do believe they had, which famously in that one book about Hillary was an oh shit moment. Like, you know, the election night when they realized they were going to lose, it was like, uh-oh, we're screwed. Trump's going to demolish the whole house of cards. And so they realized it was all hands on deck, FBI spying, media doing everything they could, every institution going after Trump. And then something amazing happened. Nothing. They got away with it. They all of this corruption, and now it's just out in your face. Twitter files, FBI spying on Trump's team, all of it's just out in your face. And now it's accepted as normalcy. Like, so everything turned up to 11, and now we're just at 11. It's like, oh, we got away with it. No one gives a shit. Great. Mm-hmm. So now we can just keep up. We don't have to go back to operating at a 6. We can just keep operating at 11, right? And so the problem is, if you out corruption, but then don't do anything to successfully deal with it, have you helped or have you hurt? Now, I still obviously supported Trump in 2016 and think he was better than Hillary, but I think that there's an argument to be had. You're sort of making the opposite argument, which is, no, we want things to accelerate to 20. Just, it needs to get so bad, so fast that it wakes people up. But there's a problem with that. One, there is no evidence that I've seen, if we adapt this mindset, that there is any point beyond the point of no return that would wake people up. Like, if COVID didn't do it, what will?
Well, I think a lot of people have started to wake up a lot more, because you see a lot of people that were more on the left that are coming over to the right. Even Donald Trump was a Democrat for ever and ever. You see a lot of other Democrats. If RFK is coming out and starting to endorse Trump, like, that's, RFK is a Kennedy. Like, you can't get more Democrat than that, I would imagine. So I think there is a movement coming over to the right a lot more, but I think.
But wouldn't that hedge against your argument? If that's already happening in the status quo, then why would we need more disastrous policies from Kamala Harris to further accelerate that?
Well, I don't think that. So my argument would be then, if Trump does get elected for the next 4 years and slow burns it, who are we going to have after Trump? He can't go for 8 years. Right. He'll only be in for the next 4. And if he just slows that down, the next president we get, are they going to be more or less populist than Trump? Hopefully. Are we going to get another like Vivek 2.0 or something like that? Versus if we had Kamala, how bad it would be. I think, especially like her, obviously, all her policies are so bad. I think it would.
I disagree. I don't think, and here's what I think would happen. I think if Trump loses, none of this is guaranteed. It could be, it could go in the direction that you're suggesting. Maybe Trump loses, and then Kamala institutes almost complete censorship of online, so you can no longer hear me. And maybe I end up in jail, right? And no one can afford groceries. And hundreds of thousands of people die because the economy gets in such a bad situation. And we end up in World War III. Is it worth it then to get Thomas Massie elected president in 2028? Well,
No,
but let me finish. That would, so you have to ask yourself, one, would it be worth it to whoever your ideal populist candidate would be? Would it be worth to go through all of that shit on the chance that it somehow helps them? You have to answer that question first. Then you have to answer the next question. Does Trump losing make that more likely to occur? And Kamala doing all those things? I would say no. The most likely outcome for the Republican Party, if Trump loses, is a return towards Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley. That's where you're likely to see. You're likely to see a defeat of Trump where you'll all of a sudden see a bunch of people in the establishment, especially if Kamala's really bad, that will say, well, Kamala's bad not because she's establishment, but because she was a crazy, super lefty, progressive person. So what we need is a return to Bushism. That's what we need. We need get away from Trumpism, get away from populism. We need to go back to establishment Republican politics. We need Jeb Bush. We need Nikki Haley. And that's what you would, I think, would be the most likely outcome. I think that if Trump gets in there, you have a better chance of a successor like maybe a J.D. Vance because he's vice president, or maybe a Vivek, or maybe a Ron DeSantis, or maybe a Thomas Massie. I think you have a better chance of someone like that hopefully has the correct populist, what I consider correct populist impulses of Trump, but hopefully has a more plan-oriented approach. I think what you need is someone to destroy, someone to demolish the system, and then someone to build it back up. And Trump seems like someone who, at least in theory, would be the demolisher type. But I don't know how much of a builder he is. I don't know how much of a planner he is. Maybe you need someone like a Vivek or a DeSantis or a Thomas Massie or someone like that that's able to come in and say, okay, here's what we need to do. So no, I think that ultimately that sort of acceleration is dangerous because we literally could end up in World War III. We literally could end up in a Great Depression. We literally could end up with online censorship so that people like me can't even get a message out. And if we don't have the ability to talk and get our message out, then what's the chances that we get a candidate that's going to be someone that we would be happy with, as opposed to going back to the same old establishment Republican versus establishment Democrat?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just my only thing would be we've kind of been on that slow burn path, like I said, and we've had giant events that have woken a lot of people up, like you mentioned, like COVID, and even the assassination attempt of Trump, I think, has woken up a lot of independents and pushed them that way. I'm just curious if you think that that'll be enough. I've also heard you said that it's very unlikely that Trump will even get elected.
Yeah. I agree with
so,
that. I think there'll be corruption and I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the impulse of what you're suggesting. Like, for example, let's say Trump didn't win the nomination and it would have been Nikki Haley. Do I think objectively Kamala Harris would be worse than Nikki Haley? Yeah. But I think that the difference between them would be slight enough on the important issues that an election of Nikki Haley would all but ensure populism was crushed in the Republican Party from that point going forward. So that would be more harmful than good. So I would sit that election out. I would say, even though I think if I had gun to my head to pick either Nikki Haley or Kamala Harris, I guess I would pick Nikki Haley. But I think just for the actual policies that they would implement, but for what that would represent for sort of my ideology ever having a chance in this two-party system in my lifetime again of being brought to the forefront would be so diminished because of that. I would probably not want Nikki Haley to win in that world. The same could be said hypothetically. Well, if you think that Trump won't move the needle and Trump won't do anything worthwhile, do you really want him to win? Because if he wins, then it's just more Trumpism after that. Is that what you want? Yeah, I know you're not saying that, but that's an argument. Yeah.
I think he'll move the needle. I just don't know if he'll be able to do it enough. I think it'll be like his first presidency. Hopefully he's learned and will put in better people and hopefully all that stuff. But it's, he's still buying the FBI, their own building. And
he did say something. He said something this week that I thought was hopeful, that he's declining to take briefings from the intel community.
Yeah, I did see that.
And that's the first thing that I was like, right?
And called him right out on it, too.
Yeah. Well, remember, one of the first things that happened when he was being briefed by the intel community in 2016 was that they sent someone for Crossfire Hurricane to spy on him.
Yeah. Well, and not only did he decline it, but he even said, the reason I'm declining it is because that whenever I do a briefing, they leak it and blame it on me.
Yes.
So he's calling it out very specifically.
And I hope that signals that he would be more antagonistic towards those groups. Now, do I think he'll disband the FBI like he should? Probably not. But at least that's a positive sign. We'll see. I still think the chances of him winning because the corruption against him will be so vast will be very small. And even if he does win, I don't know that he'll go far enough because they'll immediately start trying to kiss his ass if he wins. Oh, no, we're good, President. So we'll see what happens. But, I think ultimately going forward, I would rather see populism, at least on paper, win in this election and the authoritarian impulses of the communist left lose, because I think even if we just stay still for 4 years under Trump, that's way better than what would happen under Kamala. And I think that puts us in a better position to move the ball forward 4 years from now than if Trump loses and we go back to Nikki Haley, Marco Rubio.